Alrighty, everyone. This is meteorologist Timmy Albertson. Welcome to Weather Chat with Timmy yet again. We got some tropical weather to talk about. We now have Hurricane Lee out in the Atlantic Ocean, and we also have Hurricane Jova out in the East Pacific, and she is also looking really well there on the satellite imagery. So we'll take a look at that here in just a few moments. We'll also take a look at some storms down across the deep south. Nothing too major with those storms right now, but some locally gusty winds, all part of the same cold front that we were watching yesterday that produced some of those storms up across northern Minnesota. And now, if we were to actually flip over here to the latest weather map, that area of low pressure is making its way over Lake Michigan at this time. And there is the cold front associated with it. It's pushing all the way down past Gary, Indiana, through southern Illinois, over towards Cape Girardeau in Missouri, and then it kind of slows down a little bit and is borderline kind of stalled out across parts of Arkansas and going back towards the Red River Valley. So again, this is all part of the same system that we were watching yesterday. There's that low now, and behind it is this area of high pressure, which is going to work to kind of keep things a little bit quieter as we go, at least in parts of the upper Midwest, for the overnight tonight and going into the day tomorrow. But it's going to take a little while for that high pressure to make its way further off towards the east. So that's why we're seeing some of that active weather down across parts of the deep south. That's just a look at the latest weather map. All right, let's go ahead here and we'll take a quick little look here over at the tropics. As mentioned, we do have Hurricane Lee now, and Lee has just continued to intensify pretty steadily over the past 24 hours. As a matter of fact, when we were looking at it this time yesterday, it was a tropical storm with 45-mile-an-hour winds. Now it is a low-end Category 1 hurricane with 75-mile-per-hour winds. That's what I forgot to do. I forgot to get the graphic, but that explained the different categories. But don't worry, you'll learn as you go here that we talk about Category 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 when it comes to hurricanes. It's just based on the wind speed. So 75 miles an hour is kind of the low end of a Category 1 hurricane. But Lee is expected to really kind of begin to intensify maybe a bit quicker, especially maybe over the next 48 hours. And there's a couple of reasons why. One of them is that it has a little bit of wind shear right now kind of still in its way, but that'll likely decrease. If you're a hurricane, you do not want wind shear. I know typically when we talk about severe thunderstorms, we talk about needing to have a lot of wind shear. Well, hurricanes don't like wind shear. I know, it's kind of strange. They are also themselves very strong storms, but when we start to lose that wind shear, that really helps out the hurricane quite a bit. It's also kind of trying to move around an upper level ridge that is just off towards its north, and that's going to kind of giving it that little bit of that steady speed that we've seen over the past 24 hours. But it'll likely begin to exit away from that ridge, and that's going to allow it to maybe kind of slow down just a little bit. So it's kind of competing with it right now, but that will likely begin to kind of move away from that. Also then going to enter into some very warm waters, warmer than the waters are already where it is at, and there's a lot of moisture, and that is going to help Lee to intensify. Now, the way that it's expected right now of Hurricane Lee over about the next 48 hours is, again, it will continue to intensify, but it could very well maybe undergo a rapid intensification, and we're going to take a look at what a rapid intensification looks like with Hurricane Jova. Moving rapidly along, there it is. There's the track there. Again, not the fastest moving hurricane, but it might be a little hard to see there on your screen. It is expected to become a Category 3 hurricane, possibly by Friday afternoon, and then maybe even intensify a little bit more after that. So we're just going to kind of have to wait and see. It's going to be entering into a very favorable environment. Now, the Hurricane Center only puts their tracks out to about 5 days. Obviously, you look at this map and you say, okay, well, it looks like it might be going straight to the East Coast after that. Keep in mind, folks, there's a lot of things that can change in the forecast, and you can see this is not the fastest moving storm system. Not, when we talk about, the cold front on the weather map and everything, that covered pretty good distance in 24 hours. Hurricanes don't normally. They kind of, at least initially, until they get caught up in a trough or something, they don't really move too quickly. It's just not their nature. So that's about 5 days worth of travel. So obviously with forecasting capabilities even today, once you go beyond 5 days, the uncertainty really increases. So the Hurricane Center's tracks only go out 5 days. And again, There's a lot of reasons for that. So what are we expecting with Lee? Yes, it is going to become a major hurricane, which is a Category 3 or higher hurricane. It'll likely at least reach Category 3 intensity probably by Friday afternoon. But hey, if it undergoes rapid intensification, which is a very good possibility with this, it could reach that even sooner. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here, though, is that this is a long track hurricane. Okay, this is not like what Idalia was, where it just kind of popped up and then quickly made its way eventually into Florida. Lee is taking his time moving here. So typically with these stronger hurricanes, well, typically with hurricanes, especially these long-lived ones, they undergo what's known as an eye wall replacement cycle, which is basically it exchanges its eye out for a new one. And when that happens, it does actually kind of temporarily weaken the hurricane enough, and some hurricanes can undergo them quite a few times. There is a possibility, just given Lee's longevity, that he probably will be doing the same thing. So as far as forecast point wind, we also got to keep that in mind, especially once we get towards next weekend and maybe towards the end of the weekend, we could maybe see a couple of eye wall replacements. But in the meantime, we'll keep an eye on Lee. There it is on the satellite imagery below. Eastern side looking pretty well. Looks like it is trying to develop a little bit here of an eye. There may kind of already be one, just a little hard to see. We'll know more as we go through the overnight tonight. All right, let's take a look at another one. Now, we didn't talk about this one yesterday, just because time and everything, and we were looking at some storms, and I was dealing with some storms. Obviously, I live up north here. But let's take a look at Jova. Jova, anyways, all the way out in the East Pacific Ocean. That's what a rapidly intensifying hurricane looks like. It really intensified quite a bit over the course of the day today. You can kind of see just how small that eye is. We kind of call it a pinhole eye. It just looks like a pinhole, not very wide. With rapidly intensifying hurricanes, we oftentimes seeing that. I remember Hurricane Wilma back in 2004, when it just the insane intensification it went into over a 36-hour period. The eye was only 2 miles wide. Okay, that was just the eye. Sometimes with these quickly intensifying hurricanes, the eye kind of does get a little bit small, or is a bit small, and then eventually it kind of will expand a little bit outwards. But I mean, that is a very annual looking hurricane. That's almost a perfect circle. At least the cold cloud tops that you're seeing, that white color there, those are very high up cloud tops, very cold there. This is a very healthy looking hurricane, and it's likely going to be staying that way at least over the next 48 hours or so. Right now, it's a low-end Category 4 with 130-mile-an-hour winds estimated, but that was as of 3 o'clock Mountain Time. We'll see if we can maybe get another update. Next update probably won't be until about 11 o'clock Eastern Time, p.m. So, but my guess is just by looking at that, it might be a little bit stronger, the next update here, if it continues to look like that. So, that is Jova. Now, Jova's not coming to land. It's staying out in the open waters, as most East Pacific hurricanes do, just by the way things are set up. Obviously, we had the one a few weeks ago that, made landfall up in the Baja and then kind of gave some rain across parts of the desert Southwest. Most tropical systems, at least these East Pacific ones, they like to stay out in open waters, and that's just because of where the land is positioned based on everything else that goes on. That's, just the way it shapes out. Most hurricanes actually like to generally stay out in open waters, but that's not the point. The point I'm saying is that is Jova. Maybe we'll see here in a little bit if there's a couple of buoys nearby. That's right at 15 degrees north latitude, so I would imagine that there probably is going to be a couple of buoys, I would imagine, out around there, given that it's right at kind of one of the odd numbered 5 or 0 latitude lines. The interesting thing about Jova here that you can maybe see a little bit on that graphic there on your left. Again, this is the Hurricane Center's track here. They have the wind field plotted out. Look at the tropical storm force wind field. Okay, you see it kind of extend a little bit out. That's kind of normal. But look at the hurricane force winds. That's 74 mile an hour winds or greater. That's in red. You can barely see it. Again, that's how quickly intensifying this is. A lot of conservation of angular momentum going on here. Very small eye. And again, those 130 mile an hour winds are only located in the part known as the eye wall, which surrounds the area right around the eye. It's kind of hard to tell where it is on satellite. You can see it very well, though, on radar imagery. So Basically, within that tiny area, there's that little pocket of the 130-mile-an-hour winds, but you can see it does not extend very far out from the center. So you can imagine it's a very tight gradient there with the winds speeds. So, one of those situations, kind of a little bit like what we saw with Adalia last week, kind of a little bit of a tight gradient. A few miles can make a big difference. But again, Jova here is going to be staying out in the open waters. That's what's expected. And eventually it'll begin to weaken as we head towards the end of the weekend. But right now it looks really good there. I'm definitely going to be saving some of these satellite photos. And one of these days, when we go more into the physics of a hurricane, that'll be a good example to use just based on the way it looks. And, I've seen quite a few really good looking hurricanes. And I mean, a lot of them do tend to eventually look pretty good, but that looks really good for some reason there. Just very annular, very circular in its shape there. All right. So that is what is going on with the tropics. Again, we got Hurricane Lee right now all the way out in the open waters. Looks like it's going to stay north of the Lesser Antilles, north of Puerto Rico. But again, not the fastest moving hurricane. It's going to be a little while before we see it maybe getting closer to the mainland United States or, maybe the Bahamas or Bermuda, depending upon how it wants to track from there. But again, that's looking 5 days out. Staying out in the open waters for the next few days, which is going to be good news for Lee. Hurricanes do not like land. They require water. So it's staying out in the open waters will certainly be good for the hurricane itself and trying to develop and get a bit stronger. All right, we were talking about some storms across parts of the Deep South. What a shocker, storms in the Deep South. The heat and humidity, folks, that it is down there. Boy, I've been down there before, and it is just oppressively humid in the summertime. It's just, I guess the best way to say it is it's just terrible in the middle of summertime down there. I don't know how people who live down there deal with it. But again, they probably wonder how people up here in northern Minnesota deal with the winter. We just kind of get used to it after a while. I mean, unless you're like me, I love winter. But let's go ahead here. We're going to flip over to the radar here really quickly. And we got a nice little shot here coming in from a camera in Memphis. So let's take a look at this here. What we're looking at here, whoa, is look at that. That's actually a really cool shot. What are the odds? We got the storm that's coming in. It looks like we're looking west here. Obviously, there's downtown Memphis. We have the storm that looks like it's coming right up to the camera there. Already raining a little bit, but it looks like the really heavier rain is just there, kind of covering the skyline there a little bit there. So pretty cool. Definitely the decent looking thunderstorm there. Is there anything strong or severe with this thunderstorm? Right now, last time I checked, there wasn't, but let's go ahead here and take a look at the radar. This is up in Little Rock. Let's go ahead here and take a look at our friends in the Memphis area. Memphis, Tennessee, I have been there before. I didn't stop there, but I did drive through it. Actually, I'm not a big fan of hot weather climates, but when I was actually coming, because I was coming up on Highway 61, US 61, which you can see is right here. One time when I was coming up on Highway 61, and this is a really pretty stretch they have here. Not in South Haven, and boy, I cannot remember that county name now, and that is going to drive me nuts because it's a kind of a distinct county name. But anyways, coming up here on 61 across the extreme part of northern Mississippi, it looks really nice there. They have kind of the trees. It just looks pretty nice. Anyways, right now that area is seeing some storms. So we were taking a look at the radar imagery. And it looks like this was the camera right here, and there's Memphis, so you can see that what we were looking at was the storm that is just off to, now it's pretty much right over it. So nothing severe with this thunderstorm here, just even looking at the radar, it just looks like an afternoon downpour in the Deep South. You can see the rain coming down there pretty well. It does appear to be a little bit on the breezy side, but that's not unusual. We talk about these, thunderstorms, rain, cool air coming down to the ground, there's going to be a little bit of a breeze, but doesn't look like anything too much. There's kind of a cool shot though. It does look like that there was a special weather statement for the storm just down to its south. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and kind of take a little bit of a look at that, and we'll see here what that was for. And it's this guy right here, I'm guessing here. So if we were to go ahead and let's loop this just a little bit, we don't need all 30 frames like we did last night when we were taking a look at that one storm. For those of you who watched last night, going all the way from Raynard up towards north of Duluth, there was pretty cool. So looks like they put this special weather statement up for, I believe, probably for this whole thing in general here. Let's see what they're calling it for. Again, sub-severe. This is a special weather statement, and they just put these out sometimes, or hey, we got a storm. It's not severe, but it's still at least a little bit on the strong side. Wind gusts about 50 miles an hour, and it's moving to the east at about 30 miles an hour. So again, nothing too unusual with that there, obviously. A lot of the storms that I've been kind of seeing down here this afternoon have been on the kind of somewhat breezy side. In fact, if we were to take a look over, flip over to the Little Rock, the Little Rock radar site here, we kind of just got these little scattered looking thunderstorms here. And a lot of these have maybe a little bit of small hail in them, but they also maybe have some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and that's why you see a few severe thunderstorm warnings, those yellow polygon shapes that you see, those severe thunderstorm warnings. There's also another special weather statement that is just below my tie on that one thunderstorm here. Let's see if we can't pull that down a little bit. But it appears that right now this is probably one of the stronger storms. And again, it's warned for about 1-inch size hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds. And this storm, let's see here, is tracking to the southeast at about 35 miles an hour. So just kind of drifting along a little bit. And what's actually pretty interesting here about these storms is if we were to go back and take a little bit of a look here at the weather map, I'll pop it back up here for you guys. So there's your surface chart, all right? These storms are all kind of running out ahead of this somewhat stalled out frontal boundary, but they're also getting a little bit of help. Part of the reason why we've seen them kind of fire up here, but even though, the cold front goes all the way back up north, well, one of the reasons why we're kind of seeing some of the stronger storms down, at least in Arkansas, is number one, it is hot there and humid, and, that's good for thunderstorms. Hot, humid air is very good for a thunderstorm to move. It's hard to lift, 50-degree air mass, but when you're dealing with temperatures and the humidity down there, those tend to be some decent air masses, but also it's getting a little bit of help in the mid-levels here. This is a mid-level, upper-level chart here. I know it looks like a lot, but really the main thing to focus on are those deep black lines. In weather, we talk about upper level and mid-level ridges and lows and troughs and everything. We'll go into, honestly, we could probably get into the winter season. We'll be looking at these maps a lot more, and things will kind of make a bit more sense. But just to kind of point out right now here, what we see a little bit is on this particular map, you see where these lines, these dark blue lines, kind of condense a little bit and almost drop down. This is a mid-level, what we would call a mid-level shortwave trough here. You can see the winds kind of increase just a little bit. These are wind barbs. Where there's not as many, the winds are less. Where there's more of them, the winds are higher. So we got this little just kind of burst here, this little shortwave trough swinging its way through, and that's helping to provide some of the extra push to get some of those storms developed. And again, there's a lot that goes into this. One of these days we talk about the cyclone development cycle. This will all make a lot more sense. But just for a quick glance, that's part of the reason what we're seeing is, just a little bit of this shortwave trough just kind of pushing its way through in the mid-levels, and that is helping out those thunderstorms. So that's kind of why we're seeing some of them, at least some of the stronger ones. Now take a look. You'll notice that big circle there across West Texas, southern New Mexico. That's an upper level, that's at least a mid-level high. I believe actually if we were to switch to the upper levels here, maybe we could see, we'll go up even higher. Now we're looking at the jet stream values here, folks. Now we're looking up pretty high here. We're looking at about 25 to 30,000 feet up. Not a lot of air up there, or at least air. Well, there's more air. Gravity is interesting, so kind of a lower pressure up here. But you can see how that just kind of bulges out. You can see almost how these wind barbs make a little bit of a circle. So there's a little bit of an upper level high there. Hot weather. So a couple of weeks ago, we were dealing with that heat that was across, well, pretty much half the U.S. It was an upper level high that was sitting there. So again, this is what we would normally look for with the jet stream. This might be slightly higher up, but again, there's that little shortwave trough, and you'll notice that it appears a bit further to the west than the mid-level one appeared. Again, there's a reason for that. Until the system itself becomes stacked, there is a little bit of a lag, for lack of a better scientific explanation at the moment. Again, one of these days, or as we get into winter, we'll take more of a look at kind of the process of this, and this will make a bit more sense. But kind of cool there, certainly nonetheless. And if you look over here in Lake Michigan, there is another little trough here, kind of, well, actually, I guess almost borderline, maybe a little closed low here, right over the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Our surface low is down there, so that's almost about to be kind of a stacked system, which eventually means it will begin to weaken. But anyways, that is kind of how that is shaping out. So we got these kind of these air masses just hanging around up there. But so yeah, even at the surface, the weather, everything is connected. So there's always a reason, as I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably figured out by now by watching these. So let's go back to that radar here really quickly. Let's take a look here at our Memphis. Let's see how good that storm is doing over in Memphis. Let's see, is it still raining there? And it looked like the storm was just, oh, that is actually really cool. All right, so this is kind of a cool shot that you see here. As I was about ready to mention it, the camera that we were looking at was right it's right at the edge of that group of storms, and you can see it exactly right there. We're looking west. There's downtown Memphis, and then a little bit over, I guess this way for you guys, but a little bit over towards your left there, you can still see the rain falling there. So pretty cool shot there, actually. There's the bridge. There's, like I said, there's downtown Memphis. Looking west, so Arkansas is going to be on the other side of that skyline, and well, you get the idea. So pretty cool. Let's see what other cameras we got available to us here really quickly as we take a look at some of these storms. Let's see, do we got anybody down? Let's see here. Nah, it doesn't appear that we have any other ones nearby, which is kind of a shame because it'd be interesting to see, and you can see some of these special weather statements popping up here. So taking a look here, you'll notice these little a couple of little triangles, one here and then one up here. These are hail reports that came in. Probably looks to be what, about an hour ago, unless this is in Central Time. Yeah, 1 inch size hail. And then same thing down here. So not only do these have a little bit of gusty winds, but a little bit of hail with them. But like I said, kind of similar to what we were seeing yesterday, only all the way up in Minnesota. Kind of appears to be somewhat of a similar setup there. So some of those storms scattered here, and they do not have any severe thunderstorm watches that are in effect right now for that area. Again, a lot of these storms just kind of bubbling up and just kind of gradually drifting their way. You see that colored line right here? That is the frontal boundary that we were taking a look at on the other weather map. Again, it is kind of stalled out, but we do have this at least little center there of low kind of helping things out. And this might eventually kind of try to get moving again, but that goes into more forecasting things. So pretty interesting weather day. For those of you who didn't see it, it's quite all right. Let's just take a look at Jova one more time. Man, that is just a really good looking hurricane. That's that. I mean, that's a really good looking hurricane. So again, that one's not coming to land though. That one's staying out. That's what we were gonna do. Let's see if we can find a buoy out there really quickly. All right, let's go ahead here, and while we're all looking at that, again, I could probably watch that all day. I probably will. Let's go ahead here and see if we can't. I know the audio gets, hey, good news is a little bit of a systems upgrade going to be happening here shortly, hopefully in the next couple of days here. So that might help a little bit with at least some of the audio, hopefully. But we're getting there, folks. We're getting there. All right, let's go ahead here and take a look at what we can see here with, I want to see here with, oh, that's right. I haven't switched the radar over. You're all probably wondering what I'm doing. Take a look at it one more time. Boy, isn't that cool looking? I'm seeing it here on my screen. I had a kind of a bigger image of it. This is courtesy of Tropical Tidbits, by the way, that satellite imagery. You can pull out satellite imagery from a lot of places. Actually, I want to see here. We may also have another satellite that could be worth taking a look at really quickly, everyone. I know. I take forever trying to get to the point. There is one thing I do want to see if we can get one more really cool satellite imagery here. Let's see here. Yeah, here we go. Okay, here's a goodie. I will put this up on the other screen here for you guys. But I want to give you an idea of, this is a good animation here. We'll move this over, and what you're going to see here on your screen is this is Jova down here. Look at how quickly it intensified. Again, this is a rapid intensification. So you can just see how it kind of went from obviously still a hurricane, and then you notice there how it just kind of really got itself. But also look at how small it is, relatively speaking. Okay, so we saw it on the map there. We saw it on the satellite. It looks like this massive hurricane, and obviously it is a big hurricane. But you can also notice just how kind of tight it is and how compact it is. So sometimes when you watch the news, they'll say, "Oh, look at this hurricane; it's 500 miles wide." Well, yeah, the clouds are, but it's not always the case. The winds certainly aren't. But there you go. There is that's what it looks like there. So this is a slightly longer loop than what we were taking a look at. This is also kind of a wider view. It just kind of gives you puts it into perspective there for you. All right, so we were looking for buoys. That's what we were doing. Let's see if there are any out in the open waters here. Let's see if we can't get those flipped on really quickly. All right, let's see here if there's any buoys nearby, and I don't think there's going to be. What a shame. There's got to be some nearby. Hold on, everyone. I'm pretty certain. I would imagine that they would have to have one down there. See, normally most of when I do tropical stuff, and most American meteorologists at least, we're always looking at the Atlantic. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the Pacific too, because, like I said earlier, there's not, the way that these systems normally track. Okay, you know, they don't go towards land norm. I mean, they do make landfalls. Yes, don't get me wrong, but you know, everything is to its east. And normally when we talk about storms, they move west, but not tropics. They move the other way. There's reasons for that. But so there's not really much in the way of land masses to the west of a lot of these systems. Now, obviously, there can be times where they do turn and they do make landfall. I mean, that has happened obviously multiple times a year. But because of but when they do, it's down in Mexico, not typically not the U.S. So again, like I said, a lot of American meteorologists tend not to focus on the East Pacific as much, and that's just because you know they typically don't affect East Pacific hurricanes don't typically affect the United States at least proper. You get what I'm saying. All right. So Atlantic hurricanes obviously get a lot closer, and there's a good chunk of the U.S. population on the East Coast anyway. So there's that. So let's see here if we don't have any reports from nearby. And the answer to that is no. Wow, what a shame. But anyways, it's that is it on the satellite imagery. Again, there's the wind field. So again, what they're expecting again with Jova. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, but I am probably mispronouncing it. But again, look at how tight that wind field gray. This is probably going to expand once the rapid intensification begins to kind of taper down at least a little bit, if it does. But regardless, this wind field probably will expand just a little bit here. But let's take a look here really quickly. We'll see how far out these hurricane force winds are estimated to be. Okay, so there's the center, and what is that, about 15 miles out from the center. That is pretty impressive. That's the hurricane force winds. The strong tropical storm force winds only go out about 40 miles from the center. So yeah, that's a pretty tight gradient there with those wind speeds. So pretty cool to say the least. So that is what a rapidly intensifying hurricane looks like. And you saw it here on Weather Chat with Timmy and anyone else who has an access to a satellite imagery. Yeah, that's what a rapidly intensifying hurricane looks like. So look at this back here. They have the track, okay? So it went from a Category 1 hurricane The 75-mile-an-hour winds to then it jumped up to a category 2. And then look at the pressure drop too. Pressure dropped from 979 millibars, which if we were talking about, continental U.S. low pressure system, that's pretty strong. For tropical cyclones, they like to get even lower than that, much lower. But 979, and then it dropped down to 972. So it looks like the rapid intensification happened right there when it went from 972, and then it dropped down to 953. And what do they got right now? The pressure is 953 still. Let's see, this one might not be a proper because it says 115-mile-an-hour winds, but it's got a category 4 label on it, so that doesn't sound right, but you get the idea. Gusting may be estimated. Now, here's the other thing too, folks, because a lot of this is actually estimated. Yeah, there's reasons for that. It's out in the middle of nowhere. So we actually have to estimate it, and we use satellite imagery, a lot of satellite imagery. And there is actually, correlations, Dvorak system and everything that, based on how it's structured and everything, we can estimate the winds, and it has proven time and time to be fairly accurate. But believe it or not, this is still somewhat estimated. So kind of interesting there, fun fact for you. Now, when they get a bit closer to land, especially the Atlantic ones, the hurricane hunters will fly into it, and they'll actually be able to measure the wind speed, and then it's, it's a different story. But when they're way out in the open here, like Jova is, and even right now, like what Lee is, it's just kind of an estimation. So again, when they start getting closer to land and stuff, or depending on the circumstances, hurricane hunters do fly in, and they will take the measurements there. And again, like I said, the systems that have been in place have been proven to be pretty close to, at least scientifically assuming that it's pretty close to accurate. So, or at least a very, very close guess there. So there it is. There is Jova's thing, current conditions. So again, pressure down to about 953, 130-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 160. There's the wind field and everything. And so, yeah, that is a look over at the tropics. All righty, everyone. Well, that is going to be probably it for tonight's weather chat. Like I said, we're going to keep an eye on Hurricane Lee. That one will certainly be interesting. We'll see if it rapidly intensifies tonight. We'll see what it does. We'll see how where it's at tomorrow morning. Probably won't have an update then, but we will have another weather chat tomorrow evening. So make sure that you do join in for that. It'll be a goodie. And not only that, but yeah, we'll take a look here. See if Jova's still hanging out. Jova probably will get a bit stronger. Most likely, I don't think it's done intensifying yet. So there's that. Alrighty, everyone. Well, I thank you all very much for taking the time to join me here on this weather chat. Hopefully you found it at least somewhat entertaining, or at least a good way to pass a few minutes of your day. We'll be back here tomorrow evening, so I hope you all have a good rest of your evening and enjoy those storms, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a good one, everyone.